你们好，我是 Lynn。So， 现在我在外滩，你们看一下，我在外滩，我和很多人在一起。You see a lot of people around me, but it's not as many as usual. So, okay, so and also I'm a Chinese teacher at GoEast. Today I'm very happy to meet you here. Yeah. Okay, maybe let's transfer to the next one. Can I introduce more?
Sure. I'm part of GoEast and also studying there, studying Chinese, of course, and hosting this event together with all of you. And we got some really great speakers coming up.
I'm Alex. I'm one of two Alexes at Smart Shanghai. I'm one of the editors. Yeah, I'll be answering any questions that people might have about what it's generally like in the city, and sort of give a little bit of perspective from from a magazine that's been around for too long, frankly.
Hi, I'm James. I'm a student at GoEast. I just finished HSK3, and I'll be talking about living downtown.
I'm Rebecca. I work for Smart Shanghai, and I'm also a friend of Yap's.
Yeah. Okay. Nice to meet you. I'm the China visa expert in Shanghai, and I work for Visa in China. So I know a lot of foreigners, they were concerned about the visa rules. So if you have any questions in this meeting, feel free to ask me. Yeah, and nice to meet you, everybody.
So now today we will start the first part. I will show you a little bit about the Bund now. And also you can see still a lot of people. So the view never changed, still as amazing as before. And also you see still a lot of people. But I heard that maybe they will turn off the lights early than before. So, okay, thank you, Rebecca. And yeah, please, maybe you can move on to the next step. Thank you.
Start with Alex, who writes for Smart Shanghai. He already introduced himself. Basically, we're wondering about the main situation in Shanghai. And it's quite interesting. You already said Smart Shanghai has been around for too long. I don't think it's too long, but it's good to have this long-term perspective because a lot of foreigners there are here for like 1 year or 2 years. But how do you look back on this period, Alex?
As one of many exciting chapters in Shanghai life, frankly. It always seems, especially in expat circles, there always seems to be some sort of pending apocalypse or catastrophe that's going to wipe everything out. And, whether it's the trade war or it's, changing regulations or visas or, SARS, whatever it is, there's always some horrible thing on the horizon. That's not to downplay that this is a very serious situation. And, we've all, I think, to some extent at least, experienced some difficulties to more or less extent. But I think we're going to end up looking back on this as just, oh yeah, you remember that thing with the COVID where the whole country shut down for like 2 months? We'll recover. We'll come back.
Does it compare to anything before?
Well, so even though Smart Shanghai has been around for that long, I've only been in Shanghai for about 6-7 years, something like that. So I missed the biggest comparison, which was obviously the SARS outbreak. But from everything that I've heard from people who were here at that time, it's a totally different kettle of fish. Things have been handled very differently this time around. So, it's not the first time in the 2000s that China has seen a massive, epidemic outbreak, but it definitely seems, I'm reminded by the fact that the WHO report has a line in it that says that this is probably the most ambitious and aggressive, epidemic containment effort that's ever been made, possibly in history. So it might be that there was an epidemic before, but it's been handled very differently this time. And yeah.
What do you personally think this period is almost over? Because you've been talking to doctors and a lot of people. I want you to tell us what you think. Do you think this period, at least in Shanghai, is over, or do you think things are pretty much back to normal, or what?
Well, considering this is going to live forever on YouTube, I don't want to say anything that's going to be proven wrong in like a week and a half. But I will say that tentatively things are delicately getting back to something approximating a shade of the original state of things. I would answer that as saying that I'm optimistic about it happening sooner rather than later. However, like, we are going to be feeling the ripple effects and the after effects of this for a long time to come. So people keep telling me, like, when is it going to go back to normal? And I'm like, there is no real, like, you know, we are now in post-COVID situation. Like, that's the world we live in, and it's going to affect a lot of things going forward. So, however, with regards to, are people going to go back to school? Probably not for a little while. Are bars and restaurants opening? They sure are. You know, is Disneyland open? It is not. Important questions. I guess the real answer is it depends on what element you're looking at it. If it's just your basic daily life, yeah, we're slowly getting there, and I think it'll be over sooner rather than later. Unless something goes horribly wrong in a week and a half, and I'm again proven, you know, wrong immediately, and the whole city has to go back on lockdown. Who knows?
Yeah, we hope
a lot
not.
of people have been, yeah, God. But a lot of people have been, you know, kind of hesitant about saying when things are going to go back to normal. No one's really focused on that. We're still focused on making sure that we can contain any sort of outbreak here. So,
yeah, definitely. I do think that panic-wise, because I don't live downtown, and I'm still like local Chinese, Shanghainese. What do you think is like among Laowai, let's say downtown area? Did you guys panic? I didn't speak to you like during, you know, February, because I don't know how you guys react. Because most of the Laowai that I knew were, I don't know, I think you were panicking a little bit, but then well, things got pretty back to normal, like especially on the week of February 10th, I think. So how did you feel? Like, I really want to know how you guys felt during February, let's say.
Yeah. I mean, it depends from person to person. Obviously, people reacted to the news and the changing situation in different ways. Individually, I feel like actually there was a little bit of a delay in recognizing the seriousness and the severity of the outbreak. I do feel like a lot of, especially in the expat groups, they didn't really take it that seriously to begin with. There were a lot of people still going out, a lot of people trying to go about their day as if it was totally normal. Eventually, it settled in. You know, little things like, you know, making sure you wear your mask outside took a little time to take, you know, catch on in the expat groups. Panic, though, I wouldn't call it a panic. I didn't see panicked behaviors. I saw generally some concern. I was hearing a lot of conversations. You're still hearing a lot of conversations between people and in group chats about, like, you know, should I stay here? Should I leave? This sort of thing. But it didn't have a panicked tone to it here, at least. I feel like, at least in Shanghai, we mostly felt pretty safe. And the impact felt more like an inconvenience, at least, rather than like a serious, you know, oh God, everybody run out in the street sort of situation.
We're seeing on Twitter, like now in the rest of the world, a lot of panic buying, especially toilet paper seems a big thing. Was there anything like this in Shanghai?
There was definitely a little bit of panic buying when it came to masks. Masks certainly disappeared very, very quickly. It's still, you know, despite massive ramp up in production of masks, it's still hard to get them sometimes. I think that was the only thing that was getting panic purchased. I have noticed some, like, grocery stores were kind of low on, you know, stocks on the shelves in the early days. I think that was more due to just kind of disruption in the distribution rather than, you know, kind of any scarcity of product. And nowadays it's, yeah, no, I mean, all the shelves are still stocked. There's no shortage of anything, including toilet paper. Plenty of that still. Thank God, obviously, the most important thing in this virus epidemic.
Yeah, but I always have a question, like, why toilet paper? I mean, it seems like a universal thing. I mean, but why toilet paper? I mean,
I couldn't speak to that. I've seen pictures going around of face masks made out of toilet paper. I don't know if that was their solution, but I don't know. People react weird in crisis situations, and I guess people's first thought was, you know, God forbid I have to not well, all right, you know what I mean. That was the first thing on people's minds, I guess. Yeah.
But I guess, well, in Shanghai, it's a little bit different because we could still order things online during Spring Festival, even though, like we have to pay extra for a delivery fee, I think usually. But still, I mean, we could still order like food and vegetables and stuff like that online, right? On apps and stuff. So I
Yeah.
think it's pretty different than elsewhere in the world.
Yeah. I mean,
we rely on it so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I will, like people in the rest of the world, they might have like Deliveroo or like Amazon, whatever delivery stuff. But again, one of the benefits of living in Shanghai is that we have one of the best sort of delivery systems infrastructures in the world. So yeah, you could get whatever you wanted delivered right to your door. And so, yeah, I think that also helped obviously keep people from queuing up in supermarkets and, kind of spreading the COVID even further. So we saw, an unexpected benefit of that was it helped people survive their quarantine without too much trouble. Yeah, I mean, deliveries and groceries have been doing extremely well actually during this time. They've been seeing. They're probably one of the only businesses that have been doing well right about now.
On the topic of businesses, small businesses or big businesses, how are they doing? Because some sectors are forced to have closed for the last few weeks, months.
Yeah, well, I think the obvious one that most of us see is obviously F&B. That's an important part of expat life in Shanghai. Restaurants and places to drink. They've been very badly hit, obviously, as you can imagine, losing almost a month and a half worth of revenue, and even when things go back to normal, it's expected that it'll take some time for people to recover and start, going back out to restaurants. Basic best practice says that you should have about 3 months cushion, to account for situations like that. The reality of running a business in Shanghai is a lot of people don't do that. Small businesses obviously are the worst hit, and we're going to see quite a lot of unfortunately, we're going to see a lot of closures, at least in F&B. Bigger businesses, they usually have enough kind of reserve to fall back on. So, but I mean, we've seen some weird big closures during this time. Stone Brewing, which was a large Californian chain, shut down their tap room here, citing various features. There was a big club that had literally just opened up on the Bund called C'est La Vie that just decided to shut down, barely 3 months after opening. So, and that came as a surprise to everybody. Yeah, in other sectors, F&B is kind of what we focus on, but what I'm hearing from people is the biggest inconvenience has been not people in the US trying to get in touch with their colleagues here. So import-export suffers, obviously. All kinds of, restrictions imposed on office work makes it really hard for people to go into the office, especially in the early days, which makes it hard to run a business. So, yeah, I mean, not to be too obvious, but the impact has been bad, and it's the effects of it are going to ripple out for a long time, and we're probably going to see a lot of businesses closing their doors in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I mean that's quite unpredictable. Because I know that for some business, usually the best they could do is to provide 3-month cash flow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best situation. Well, usually they only have like 1 month. So it's, I think it's pretty tough. But let's cover some other topics like face masks. Because you wrote an article about how to register at local pharmacy and then get those face masks during February.
Yeah.
Do you still plan to do that maybe this month or next month, or are you ordering them online now, or you think you have enough stock?
So I was actually lucky. I was able to get a stock in from overseas before the kind of harsh quarantine measures got in place. The article you're alluding to was basically about the municipal government giving out a stipend, essentially 5 face masks per household, which you had to register for, and then go pick up at a local pharmacy. That was once. And I'm not as cued into Chinese government media as I wish I could be. My Chinese is not as good as it should be after so long in China. But I haven't heard anything else about new government issues of face masks, which is a shame because I would absolutely take advantage of that.
What about like in the office and in the restaurants? I think nowadays in the office we don't wear masks as often as we used to. Like, because I remember when we started to work, at least I was wearing mask, but then I figured it's just like so uncomfortable, and I just stopped doing that. And well, do you think it's necessary for people to wear masks in office, or you think it's okay that like we don't have to do that now, but it's a must that we still wear them in public? And
I would say, so every doctor I've spoken to, and we have asked that question, like, are face masks really that, effective, because there's been, especially among foreigners, I think, because, we seem more resistant to it for some reason. As somebody who wears glasses, I hate wearing a face mask because it keeps fogging it up. A real nightmare. But I mean, you should be wearing a face mask in public spaces. If you're in a location where you're going to be spending a lot of time in close proximity with people, you should be wearing face masks. It's a personal choice if you do or don't. I think most offices have temperature checks at the door, so the odds of somebody getting in who might be infected is pretty low. I think more importantly is just to make sure you continue to wash your hands. That's the most important thing, just constantly. Like I wash my hands probably every 10 to 15 minutes, which is a little neurotic, but is also just a good habit to get into during these times. So face masks, yes, in public, doctors will absolutely tell you that there's no ambiguity about that. You should absolutely be wearing a face mask in public. In the office is sort of a quasi public / private space. So it's kind of up to you, but just, yeah.
Yeah. What about the color QR codes? Because I know a lot of people are really confused. Like,
right.
Like upon their arrival in Shanghai, do they get it? What color do they get? Like,
right.
And I'm quite confused too, because like in some restaurants they would check it. Like if you enter some certain malls, they would check it. But most of the time, I would say like right now, I've been only asked to present it like 3 times.
Yeah, so I've only been asked like, I did it like sorry, I should explain. This thing is a Sui Ma, and you probably can correct me on my tones on that one. But it's essentially a new form of ID, and the plan was originally to roll it out anyway, and it's just been sort of pushed ahead as a part of this contagion. Yes, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, it's been rolled out essentially to as a measure to stop the spread. So first of all, it has to be tied to a real name identification. It has to be tied, so your WeChat or your Alipay, something that is actually attached to your ID, and it's essentially just, it's a green light, yellow light, red light for being allowed to do certain things, such as go into restaurants or buildings, take public transport. As you can imagine, rolling out a citywide identification system in the middle of an epidemic is hard. There's a lot of confusion. People don't really know when they need it. There are some places that are checking for it. Some places aren't checking for it. I've seen places where they'll just look at it. They don't no one scanned mine yet. They'll just look at it, even though it's a QR code that should obviously be scanned. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be implemented anyway. I would personally recommend that people get it as soon as they can. It's just better safe than sorry in this situation. It would suck to be trying to go somewhere and then, not be allowed to get in because you didn't take 5 minutes to generate your Sui Ma. Yeah, what does it mean? Is like I said, it's green, yellow, red, right? So if you're red, you should probably be in a hospital or something. If you're yellow, it means that you haven't completed your 14 days quarantine if you're coming in from overseas. So a lot of travelers, if they get their Sui Ma, they would probably be showing yellow. But if you're green, I mean, yeah, you've done your 14 days at home, and you haven't. There's no reason to suspect you're a risk of contagion.
I'm all green. I can. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if anybody you can see that.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. It generates constantly, so it's constantly being updated as new information about you is essentially feeding in. It'll generate a new QR code constantly.
Do you think, like, because I think everything's pretty open already, like
I'm gonna stop you there, actually. I'm sorry, because I've heard this as well, and the reality is that although a lot of restaurants are opening, and bars and places that at least foreigners like to frequent, it's not showed that we're all looking at maybe 1/3 of businesses in Shanghai have actually opened their doors again.
Oh.
Yeah. And I mean, that's all, whatever, 11,000, 13,000, 11,000, I think it is, number of like businesses have actually been able to open. It's getting better and better every day, and a lot more are opening. But I mean, again, the places that I go to are mostly open, but I'm not representative of everybody living in Shanghai, for example. So yeah, but sorry, having interrupted that. What was your question?
No. Basically, because I heard that clubs and stuff are like opening, I would say, yeah. But you already answered my question. I think it's like 1/3 of the things are open. What about movie theaters? I'm actually quite curious about movie theaters.
Last we checked, no, movie theaters are not open. But that was 2 days ago, I think. So things change very, very quickly nowadays. I would say big public gathering spaces are the ones that are going to be the last to open. So again, Disneyland, movie theaters, obviously a lot of people in an enclosed environment sitting not far from each other. Clubs, there are clubs that are opening. A lot of them have restrictions. A lot of them have limited, altered opening hours. You get your Sui Ma checked if you want to go down to 5158 and, party in Arkham or whatever. Some of them are coming back, but it's still slow going. And the thing is that it could get rolled back at any moment as well. Even just a few days ago, several bars that have managed to stay open for a while were basically told to shut down because they weren't deemed to have been following regulations closely enough. Mm-hmm. So they're sort of back to square one, and they have to kind of get approval to open again. So it's very tentative. It's very, very, very delicate.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Alex, one final question, if nobody else has questions. There's a lot of confusion about people traveling to China or Shanghai and getting quarantined at the airport or having to do self-quarantine in their home. Do you have any information about this, the rules, or is it like changing every day?
The situation is always changing every day. However, the last information that I have, at least, is that unlike places like Beijing and Chengdu, there's no blanket enforced quarantine in Shanghai. In Shanghai, there's basically a list of countries that are considered hotspots or high risk. That's currently France, Spain, Germany, United States, South Korea, Japan, Italy, and Iran. So if you're coming from there, you may very well be put into a quarantine center, which essentially is a hotel, and you'll be kept there for 14 days. There is some leeway. There are some allowances for being able to do it at home if it's considered, if the space is considered safe enough to be able to do your quarantine at home. If you're traveling, and you have a company here in Shanghai, I would recommend getting in touch with your HR person as soon as possible, because they might be able to help you out with that. As far as I understand, there are quite a lot of people who are being detained. Detained is the wrong word. Quarantined. They're being quarantined in hotels for the full 14 days. And the reason why that's being done is because there is a real and actual risk of reinfection of people coming back in from overseas, from places like Italy or so on and so forth, and bringing the infection back into Shanghai. So the government's taking no risks with that at all. So yeah, if you're coming from those places, the odds are very good that you'll probably have to spend 2 weeks in a hotel somewhere.
Yeah, there's a question from Claire. Any news about schools?
Any news about schools? No. So some schools have asked their teachers and some parents and families to try to come back into China nowadays so that they can conduct their 14-day self-quarantine, so that when the schools get the okay to open, they will then be able to go straight back into school. However, there's no solid date on it. Most chatter seems to suggest April, but again, it really depends. It really comes down to what the government decides is safe. So yeah, but I mean, schools will probably be amongst the last to open. That's definitely a. Let's just say that when the schools open, it'll be a good sign for the rest of us.
And a question from Paul: what about travel between cities in China?
I'll be honest, I don't know much about this. Generally, people have been staying at home and not really traveling from city to city. I don't know. Maybe somebody else from the chat can answer that. My understanding of it is arriving in Shanghai, you are still recommended to conduct yourself in a 14-day self-quarantine. But why would you want to leave Shanghai? Best city in the country. There's no reason to ever go anywhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, I can answer part of the question since I'm not in Shanghai. And Paul, I'm in the city of Ningbo, so not far from Shanghai, 2 hours train ride. I haven't been traveling much. It's not very wise, I think. But the thing is, right now, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago, our highway, intercity highways, they are opened. And I think it is now free to travel. And before, right after, I think during the Spring Festival and right after the Spring Festival, some of the, for example, the public transportations like the bus and also intercities bus, something like that, they are shut down. But now most of them are come back to normal. So I think between cities, it's getting better, almost normal in my part of the city. Yes.
Right. Thanks, Eva. And thanks, Alex. And let's go to the next speaker. Thank you, Alex. Magic, you're here?
Oh, yes, I'm here. Yes.
So I never met Magic in person, but I checked for some visa questions, and on Reddit, Magic has a super good reputation. A lot of people are super happy with how you help them, and I guess there's a lot of people have questions about visas now. Maybe you can tell us what are the most common questions you're getting now about visas from foreigners?
Oh, yes, yes, really. Because the virus and the Chinese government has gave a lot of measures to the foreigners who are living here in Shanghai, in whole of China. Because we are in Shanghai, so I'm talking about the visa rules about Shanghai, and they find out a lot of foreigners they are outside China, they cannot come back. So they give some rules. For example, they say that, okay, so you can do your working permit renew remotely. Before, you have to show your passport to the Foreign Exchange Bureau to extend the working permit. But right now, they accept all the e-signature, and you can do it remotely. And they find out, okay, so there was a lot of foreigners, their flight getting canceled. They cannot leave the country officially or legally. So they just give out 60 days extension automatically to every kind of visas like that. And also they find out, okay, so we delay the working time. And so they give some rules like, okay, we can do the working permit even 1 day before it expires. And in the past, you have to do the working permit renew 30 days in advance. So this is the policy is very, very close to everyone. So I just introduced these things. And I got a lot of questions, about the visa rules and about their visa things. For example, I got a client ask me that I have a student visa and it expires on the 20th of March. And can I get those 60 days extension as well? Yes, the answer is yes, that's correct. And for all kind of visa, and you can have automatically 60 days extension. So which means, if your visa expires on 30th of March, then you can still leave the country before 30th of May, and it's all legal. the custom will not stop you. There was no penalty. It's all legal. Yeah. And also, I have some clients, they might ask me the question like, okay, so if I can get this 6 days extension, can I wait for another 2 months and extend my visa? So probably I can get 14 months extension, something like that, Yeah, I just want to tell everybody like that. This is policies only for the people who stuck in China, and we don't need to take advantage of these rules. And if you have time to do the working permit and visa renew in time, it's better, because that 60 days is only capable for your visa. It's not capable for your working permit. And if your working permit is getting expired, and your how to say that, you have to start the new visa application all over again. So it's very complicated like that.
Yes. So and there's also a lot of foreigners either studying or working in Shanghai, but they've been abroad for Spring Festival, and now they're not studying now. The semester is delayed or their work is delayed. Does that have any implications on their visa?
Oh yes, yes, that's right. And a lot of people right now it's outside Shanghai, outside China. And if you stop working with your employer, the government gave some rules. Okay, so you can cancel your working permit remotely. You can cancel your visa remotely. It's okay, and you can do all the things remotely. And if you're still working for this employer in Shanghai, and then you can start to renew your working permit remotely, and then later for the visa you can wait until the virus come past, and then you can come back to do the visa. So it's much flexible.
What about the transit visa? Because before, to some countries, they have 144-hour transit visa. Is this still valid now?
Yes, it's still valid. At least until yesterday, I checked with them. They're still valid. But they also told me that because of the coronavirus, it's very serious here in Shanghai. They want to pretend the foreign virus come into Shanghai. So they suggest everybody just apply a visa outside and coming back. Don't use this 144-hour transit visa free to enter China, because they say they have the right to put you in the quarantine time for 14 days, and you might miss your next plane for that.
I do have a question. Is that if someone has a tourist visa and he still wants to, like, say, enter China, enter Shanghai, does the immigration have the possibility to refuse him or her, like saying, we kind of don't want you to travel to Shanghai now because of the virus thing, or it's not in fact affected at all?
At least until now, it's not affected at all. As soon as you have a valid China visa, you can still come to Shanghai, but based on the rules you discussed before, you might have to, they will decide if you need to stay in the quarantine time for 14 days or not.
Okay.
And we've been talking a lot about visas, but not about residence permit. I never really thought about it as two separate things, but the residence permit, nothing really changed.
Okay. So for the foreigners who work here, so normally they have two kind of certificate. Yeah. One is the working permit. We say foreign working permit. It's a blue card, like ID card. And another one is the visa. We call a lot of people say it's working visa or residence permit. It's based on your passport. Normally, when you travel, you just show your visa to the custom. But in fact, you have another working permit card with you. Yeah. Then with these two documents, you can legally work in here in Shanghai.
We can take a short break and head to Lynn. Lynn, are you here?
Yeah, I'm still here. I already almost walked through the whole Nanjing Road, and I think just 5 minutes later, I will be in People's Square. So you can see here is Nanjing Road. A lot of shops are already shut down, and also I heard that a lot of the shopping malls in West Nanjing Road, they will shut down around 7 p.m. maybe, but before it was closed around 10 p.m. And also you can see less people on the Nanjing road. So I think a lot of Chinese people, if the first time they come to Shanghai, the destination they will choose is Nanjing Road, the Bund, and also like the Yu Garden as their tourist destination. And also a lot of like foreigners friends, they come to Shanghai, they will go to the West Nanjing Road or Xintiandi, and a lot of like more like typical architectural style of Shanghai. I saw a couple, they are fighting and quarreling with each other. I don't know why. I just caught them so quickly because they do not wear their masks.
So thanks again, Magic, for your explanation. Dan is running a China Law blog, which I sometimes read out of curiosity. I think it's well written and also got some praise from Forbes and Business Insider. And I have to tell everybody, Dan woke up pretty early for us. He's in Seattle and it's around 6 in the morning now. So thanks for that. So Dan is a legal expert and we're wondering about what are the legal questions people are asking you, or which you're picking up in this situation now in Shanghai or in China.
Okay, happy to answer. But I really do feel like the legal expert in this because we're going through it in China. We're going through it in Seattle, which has become the epicenter of the coronavirus in Seattle. And our Spain group is going through it in Spain, which has become one of the epicenters in Europe. And interestingly enough, the issues are all the same. We're dealing with a lot of issues. It's not just here. I spoke yesterday with a lawyer friend in Mexico who told me he's an in-house counsel for a very large hotel company. And he told me that basically he's working on are coronavirus issues. And it's really barely hit Mexico. But basically, there are all sorts of issues. And I'm going to focus on China for obvious reasons. What we're seeing is foreign companies asking us how to shut down in China, foreign companies asking us what can they do with their employees in China, foreign employees writing us saying that they're not getting paid, or their hours have been cut, or I shouldn't say my favorite, but to me the most diabolical one was right in the heart of the coronavirus when Chinese companies would ask their foreign employees to get back to China right away. And I viewed that as their way of setting up the foreign employee to be fired. And then there is also every sort of contract issue. Foreign companies saying, what can I do about this Chinese company that's not followed the contract? What can I do to get out of this contract? And then we're dealing with foreign manufacturers who have every sort of issue you can imagine arising from the coronavirus, late delivery, payments made to a Chinese company that's probably never going to reopen, that sort of thing.
So a massive mess to untangle.
It is a massive mess.
Most of our viewers will be individuals. What if so they're working in Shanghai? What if their employer, Chinese company, or refuse to pay them? What should they do apart from talking to their employer?
Well, probably not much. Sadly, not much. These people who write us, they'll say, I've worked for the last 3 months online. I've not gotten paid. Now they just fired me. And they'll say, what should I do? And the real question is, you really have to step back and ask, what are your goals here? And the reason I say that is because non-lawyers immediately think, wow, I should just sue my employer. This is going to be easy. They're going to pay me. I'm going to win. They're going to pay me my $5,000. Well, that's not how it works. And that's definitely not how it works in China. A lot of these people, their visas are tied to that employer. That employer might be powerful. You are a foreign nobody in China. Unless you're some big exec, and that's not usually who this happens to. It usually happens to English teachers. So let's say you want to bring this lawsuit. You're going to have to go find a lawyer in your town. And if you don't speak Chinese, and most of the English teachers don't, you're going to need a lawyer who speaks English. That immediately makes that lawyer more expensive. You're going to have to pay that lawyer something. You're going to have to pay money to file the lawsuit. Now you file the lawsuit, what do you think is going to happen? You're just going to win? No. What's probably going to happen is your employer is going to do whatever they can to make your life miserable. Maybe they'll report you for a bad visa. Maybe you don't have the right visa, whatever. What that employer is also going to do is do whatever they can to make your life miserable going forward. So you start looking for another job in China, in Vietnam, in England, wherever. And you show that you work for this Chinese company for 2 years. Do you think you're going to get a recommendation from them? Or do you think that if your next employer calls them, they're going to badmouth you? And so you're doing all this for the possibility of winning a $5,000 lawsuit. And then you win that lawsuit. Do you think that your Chinese employer is just going to pay you the money? No, they might appeal. Then you have to pay your lawyer more. And then let's say you win then. Are they just going to pay you? No. How are you going to get paid? You're going to have to go to court, do all sorts of things. By the time you get paid, you'll probably have paid your lawyers and court fees the same amount as you win. So usually those are terrible, terrible cases. And you've got to be careful because you don't want to go to a lawyer who just wants your money. So the better case is where, let's say we've got an American executive who has a very good written contract. In that case, these other cases, we tell them, look, there's no point in paying us. We're not going to take your money. But the bigger cases, we might write to the Chinese company and threaten them and try to work out a deal.
But I guess sometimes it won't have to be a lawsuit, but you can give them a little bit pressure back. Because on Reddit, Shanghai, there were a lot of people saying, my employer reduced my salary or refused to pay me, etc.
Yeah, I mean, you can try to pressure them. It's like no other lawsuit. I mean, it's no different from any other lawsuit where it does not hurt to try to stand up for your rights. And so what we tell these teachers is, even on the smallest lawsuits, talk to your employer. Don't be threatening. Don't scare them enough so that they feel that they need to ruin your life, but tell them, hey, look, I just worked the last 3 months. You told me that there would be some light at the end of the tunnel. You have not paid me for those 3 months. You have not paid my rent for the last 3 months as you were supposed to do. I really need help here. Can you pay me enough so I can get home? And I suspect that there will be Chinese companies that would listen to that sort of plea. Once you leave China, it's hopeless, meaning a Chinese company is not going to be afraid of somebody sitting in Topeka, Kansas, telling them that they're going to sue them if they don't get paid. And ultimately, that's what companies are looking at, is what is my risk here if I don't pay this person? And if you offer, look, give me $1,000 so I can leave, and I'll sign a settlement and release so you're certain never to hear from me again, that can be appealing. I don't know whether that has worked or not. Perhaps you do from reading Reddit. What do people say? Is it working?
How to say, one-sided communication from the employer to the staff, and there are some, but I won't mention them. There are some. So the consequence for the employer is that they will have a bad reputation among foreign staff, and they will say, "Oh, don't go to this company." That would be.
That's absolutely true. But the problem is, and that's why these are not normal times. If an English teacher had written me a year ago in this same situation, then I would have said, go to the employer, try to negotiate. And I've definitely heard of successes a year ago. Now, and for the reason you gave, which is the school does not want to have the reputation for not paying people. Now, a lot of these schools are hanging by a thread. And if we're going to talk about Shanghai, there's one foreign school in Shanghai that I've heard from friends, their long-term plan is to basically hang on and be the last foreign school in Shanghai. And because so many are falling by the wayside. Well, so many of these Chinese English schools are falling off as well, and they're not in a position to think long-term right now. I've run into this. I've run into this problem a million times over the last 10 years, but it's a different problem. It became a different problem starting about 3 or 4 months ago. Because 2 years ago, if a teacher said, "Oh, they're telling me they don't have any money," I'd say, "Well, that might be true. It might not be true. You need to push them and find out." Now, if a teacher says they're telling me they don't have any money, I might say, "Well, you know what? That could very well be true."
Thank you so much for joining so early from Seattle.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And then we'll head to James, also another American, right? So James is, like me, a student of GoEast as well. But unlike me, living more in like downtown Shanghai, not in Yangpu. And we're mostly wondering how this time has been for you, James.
So I'd say the situation so far has been a bit of a roller coaster. There have been a lot of up and downs. So I left Shanghai for Chinese New Year on the 18th of January. And that time, the virus wasn't being taken that seriously. Everything was still pretty normal in Shanghai. And then as a few weeks passed by, around like the beginning of February, like every day we started seeing new stuff coming out about the virus, and the death toll and the infected toll rising each day. So like it definitely started getting more real around February, and then I had a couple flights canceled, and it was a little difficult to get back to Shanghai. But I finally made it back the 5th, and it was like a ghost town here. There was like no shops open, all the malls were shut down, Alama wasn't really delivering. There were a few supermarkets that were still open. So we were still able to get like fresh food and stuff like that. But I'd say the biggest thing is adapting to the new kind of lifestyle, hopefully temporary. But yeah, the situation's had its pros and cons.
And how is it now for you?
Now it's, I'd say it's almost back to normal. I mean, I'm still working from home. I'm able to go outside, go to the gyms, like meet my friends at night. So like, it's not too terrible now. It's gotten a lot better.
And so it's been like 6-7 weeks at home.
Yeah, about 6 weeks. It's really tough for me because I'm the kind of person that doesn't like to sit around the house and like just be here. I like to go out and do stuff all the time. So it was a really big learning process to go from that kind of active lifestyle to sitting on my couch all day.
But I think many other countries are also like starting this same situation. What would you say to them to prepare, or because to stay at home 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and working online and learning online?
Yeah, so I'd say one thing is have a routine. Like the first few weeks, my sleep schedule got messed up pretty badly. So like I was a night owl for like the first 3 weeks, up until like 6 a.m. and then sleep till like 4. So making sure you have like a routine. And number 2, exercise. You got to get active if you're in your house all day, especially if you're not allowed to go outside and you're in the quarantine. Make sure you exercise, cook fresh foods. You don't want to eat like delivery all the time. It'll just make you feel more lethargic. Eat fresh foods, make you feel better, help your mind. What else? Find a way to occupy your time when you're not working. So like playing video games, doing puzzles, building like Lego, stuff like that. Reading.
And were you like seeing colleagues or friends? Were you like seeing colleagues or friends in real, like offline? I mean,
Would I like?
no. Were you seeing friends like the last few weeks? Were you seeing them offline?
So the first 3 weeks, I didn't see anyone, and that was awful. But I was able to video chat and stuff like that. And then around March, beginning of March, things started opening up, and then like the people were more lax. So I started seeing a lot of people in real.
And you've also been studying. Are you studying still online?
I just finished HSK3 last week, so I'm gonna continue on. But I did a few classes online. Yeah.
Is it very? And you're also teaching online, right?
It's not exactly. So my school is just having us create materials that we'll send to the parents each day to do with the kids at home. But starting this week, we're going to be doing like a 20-minute class every Monday. I teach 3-year-olds, so it's like a little difficult to do online classes because most of our stuff is doing interactive like activities with the kids, stuff that they can use their hands, and classroom behavior control. So like the online teaching isn't really big for the kindergartens.
But as a student, do you think learning online is obviously it's not the same as offline? Are there like benefits or massive downsides to it?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's major downsides to it. Like you still get to practice and like learn, but it's not the same as being in class with your colleagues and being able to interact with your teacher right there. Another part is like you have to do everything on the computer, which can be quite difficult. Like finding a pinging keyboard, like writing down and like showing can be difficult. I definitely prefer the in-class as opposed to the online. You get kind of tired staring at the screen for 2 hours.
But I guess now everyone is going back outside, or do people still feel it's risky in Shanghai?
According to my friends and me, we don't really think it's that risky now. I think I read something the other day that said there's only been like 2 new cases in Shanghai for the last like 3 weeks or so. And I live in Changning, which is pretty downtown, right next to Jing'an and Shuhui. So like I've seen a lot of people outside, like pretty much the same amount of people as before the virus hit. Just everyone has masks. So there's people doing exercises in the park, people running outside. It seems pretty normal, but then you just have like the mask on.
And do you feel that the Chinese, the locals, they feel the same way, or is that you from an expat point of view, or?
I'd say it's from an expat point of view. I haven't really asked any locals, but
Your Chinese is good enough now?
Yeah, from going outside, it seems like they share the same point of view because they're all outside walking around.
James, I have one question.
Yeah.
Like during the 3 weeks you've been alone in the apartment, did you cook by yourself, or did you still order delivery, or you try to go to the restaurants?
So I did try to go to some restaurants, but almost everything was closed at that time. I think I found maybe 1 or 2 Chinese restaurants that were open. So the majority of what I did was cooking at home. Yeah, it's a lot cheaper to cook at home. You can get more food for a cheaper price, and Elema isn't exactly the healthy option when you're not so active.
Do you feel do you feel closer to Chinese people that you've like in Dutch we say like shared suffering is also creates a bonding?
Yeah, I'd say I do feel closer. I've lived in Shanghai for a little over 2.5 years, so I've grown to like know it as my home as opposed to the U.S. So like I have a lot of Chinese friends that are going through a lot of xenophobic comments from Western people that are like really ignorant and hateful towards them. Like I've had a few colleagues back in the U.S. that have been like yelled at in public or like had stuff thrown on them because they were wearing a mask. And mainly because people over there view the wearing of a mask differently as to over here. And the U.S., when people wear a mask, it's for like you're sick, so you're like not trying to get other people sick. But in China, it's like a preventative measure. So they're wearing it so you don't get sick. And when people in the U.S. see that, they automatically assume that they have the coronavirus. So yeah, I felt bad for my Chinese colleagues and what they're going through. And my home, China, going through this. It's been heartbreaking.
Yeah, also in the Netherlands, some people find it really offensive, people wearing masks, but I think now it's changing very quickly, this sentiment.
Yeah, I agree. In the U.S. as well, now people are like panic buying all the masks and for some reason toilet paper.
There's a question from Claire. Do you find many parents/children are interacting with your online curriculum, especially that they are so young anyway?
Yeah, so for my class in particular, so the parents aren't paying tuition right now. My school is a month-by-month tuition. So we are still giving the kids classes or giving them materials so that we can keep them keep them engaged during this time so their English skills don't go away. But the parents are loving it, for my class in particular, because they're able to help their kids learn at home, and it's like a bonding experience. And then they post the videos of stuff that they do, and then I can comment on it and correct them. I'd say they prefer the in-class as opposed to this online, but they're definitely interacting a lot. I can't say the same for some of my colleagues' classes.
Yeah, I guess those parents have also been at home a lot.
Yeah.
Are you? I know Rebecca was like, I really cannot live without clubbing. How is it for you?
That's not true. But I am looking forward to some clubbing now.
So you can actually go clubbing right now. So do you know the Up Club in Jing'an, right next to the shed?
I don't know anything about clubs.
Okay, they're open until 1 or 2 a.m. every day. And then there's a lot of bars open in Jing'an right now that are open till like 2, 3, or 4. So definitely no shortage of alcohol.
I guess everyone is wearing masks inside then, right? That's
actually inside of the bars, people take their mask off. But when you come in, they check your temperature. Sometimes they check your the QR code, and then they have you write down like your name, your address, your telephone, your passport number, all that, and then a bunch of hand sanitizer. So like most of the bars, I'd say, aren't as packed as they were before the virus. So you still have a lot of space between other people that are in the bar. And then you're usually with the people that you know. So you're relatively safe. Not 100%.
okay. Thank you so much, James. And I hope to see you again in person soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, then let's head to Rebecca. Because we spoke a little bit last week. We actually met offline. And Rebecca also works at Smart Shanghai, so you have very good overview of current topics. But if people are wondering, like, how can we help? What can we do to help the current situation? Like help small businesses or help big businesses or individuals? What can we do to help, Rebecca?
I think for like individual wise, I think it's really important that everyone stays positive. Even though I think probably the darkest time has already been over, because in February, like what James said, the 3 weeks during Spring Festival and then maybe the following week after Spring Festival was really a little bit like tough for all of us. But I think individually, if we can stay positive and we try to help people, especially like reconnect, like use this opportunity to reconnect with people, friends that you haven't been, in contact for some time, and you can just, leave them a message asking, hey, where are you? How are you doing? I think this will help you a lot. I've been like talking to friends that I haven't really had the time to, stay in contact with them. And it makes me feel a lot better to know, how they feel and if they're short of things, especially like when things are not back yet. I don't have enough masks, and I just had too much pride to ask people about it. And my friend gave me like just offered to give me a big pack of masks. So I think that's what we should do. We should just offer help to our friends or maybe even strangers if we see that whenever they need help. The other thing would be, because I see that we've got giving blood on our document. I know that if you type in like Shanghai 献血, which means Shanghai Giving Blood official website or official WeChat account, you can see where is the nearest location you can donate blood, which is obviously very important. And I think there are a lot of mini apps developed now for people to better understand either the color code or upon arrival, what you should do, what you should not do. I think it's very important that we are all, well informed about what's going on. In terms of helping small, medium businesses, I know that a lot of bars and restaurants, that because of their, business mode, it's quite difficult for them to stay like quite alive during this period of time. But as far as I know, my friends, especially my friends who own bars, they're thinking in a creative way. Or if they own a small Chinese, let's say Mandarin school, they're thinking about different ways to keep things, let's say, to stay strong. For example, like a friend of mine, during Spring Festival, she sent messages to all of her friends saying, if you give me 1,000 RMB bar credit, and when things get back to normal, or when I reopen my bar, you can come and then you can drink 2,000 worth of alcohol. I think that's pretty smart. And I actually asked her about it this morning, how many people have done this? And she said not a lot. But the good thing is that her bar is already reopened. So I guess, she survived through this. And also I see a lot of small businesses, like they would say, you guys like purchase things from my store or whatever, or, subscribe to a Chinese online lesson. I'll give you a good facial or a spa treat. I think those are all like very creative ways to, keep things going. And I do think that it really depends on how you feel. Like, for example, like for me, my gym didn't refund me money that I spent before Chinese New Year, and I just decided to let it go. I mean, personally, it would be a little bit of support that I can give. So I would say people should have more understanding for maybe your employers, or maybe, I don't know, gyms or hairdresser places that you purchase membership. Just give them a little bit more time. So that would be my suggestion. Yeah.
So you're at Smart Shanghai and you have this overview. Do you get a lot of, are you guys super busy now because you get a lot of questions, or is everything super quiet because most things are closed?
Not really, because there are always something to write. It's just how you see things. I know that for our media platform, sometimes it would be more, do we want to focus 100% on coronavirus, or we believe in life goes on?
Yeah.
It's very important that we keep this in mind, because we don't want to turn ourselves into just a platform for virus information updating. And I think readers don't want to, constantly read things about that either. So we try to give people useful information, and at the same time update like readers what's opening and what's closing. So that would be what we're focusing now. But of course, there are many media who are covering all kinds of stories behind the coronavirus. And if you're interested, of course, you can always go check it out. People always have a lot of questions. And I think like from my experience, I think the time when everything is quiet is already past. Like, I think most people believing now that it's time to move on. Yeah, because I don't know if Alex P is still online. He just like text me saying that his internet wasn't working, so he probably got kicked out.
Here, don't worry.
Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, yeah. So Alex, I don't know if you heard me, if I'm like saying things right, but I think for Smart Shanghai, that we editorial team, we are like not 100% focusing on the coronavirus. We still believe that we should cover life moves on type of thing, right? Am I right on that?
Sure. I mean, every start of the week, basically, we have the discussion about whether or not it's time to start writing like normal, like as if things aren't all revolving around the coronavirus. So yeah, I mean, it's, as you said, it's an important question, and generally, I think the feeling is that we kind of want to move on. It's been a solid month and a half of just nothing but
coronavirus coverage, and everyone's keeping up to date with all the numbers and, you know, the latest outbreaks and this and that and the other. And, you know, that's been good. It's been very good that everyone's been so keyed in. You know, we've seen readership really skyrocket, honestly, in the last month and a half, as people seem to be, you know, wanting to stay up to date. But yeah, you do run the risk of just having just nothing on anybody's mind except for the coronavirus, if that's all you write about. So yeah, we are excited for, you know, getting back to writing something that's not about a horrible pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, great. I think, I mean, for GoEast the same. We're just immediately, like first week, we're like, okay, let's focus on Chinese learning, and that has to go on. If there's no other questions, I would say let's wrap up. And I would like to thank you all a lot for watching, and a lot of thanks to the speakers.
Do you think that, do you think that maybe 10 years from now, if we still watch this on YouTube, it would be kind of funny?
I hope so. I don't hope I look back like with anything other than funny. I don't want to be bitter.
I guess let's see how the situation unfolds then.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone, and have a good night or good morning where you are. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Take care.